Thank you, Cosmin, for the introduction. Thank you, Freya and Parasite, for inviting me. I'm happy to be here. Yeah, you talked about a proposal for articulating works and places. This was a Marrakesh Biennial. This would be the project I would talk about if I would talk about my curatorial practice. This was in 2009. I'm going to talk rather than to read, try to describe pragmatically some of the works and give my interpretation. And I will talk from two positions, from the position of the artist and then from the position of the curator. Okay, I think we'll have some images that will start later. They're here. Let's check. Here, yeah, they are here. Yes. Yes, okay, thank you. So I'm going to talk later from two positions, the one from the artist's point of view and the other one from the curator's point of view, to try to answer this question, to give a response on exhibition as part of the economy of the artistic production. Sometimes I will talk about artists who are using the economy of production as a reason sometimes of production of the work, and other times this issue of exhibition as part of the economy of the work, of the artistic production, is part of the curatorial strategy. So I suggest two approaches. One example via a project that is called Le Buddha Monde, Le Buddha Monde Expeditions. Expeditions as a process, a curatorial process, where you take time as a curator to discuss with the artist on his production. And the example here we have, this first image is a view of an exhibition at M HKA, Museum of Contemporary Art in Barcelona. And the first room of this exhibition, you see this work by Moroccan artist Younes Rahmoun. And what you see in the image is a poster, a large poster that reproduces a small architecture, a sculpture in the middle of this landscape, where you have olive trees. And in each side of this big poster, you have a selection of plants that you see on the left side that grow around this site, around where the sculptural work is built. In between, you have two drawings that are the layout, the map of the architecture of the space itself. And in the right side, you have a world map, a very basic layout of the map of the world with just a dot of the location where it happened. So why I decided to show this work and talk about it, it's because the production of this work was not made for an exhibition at the beginning. It was made for the artist to reproduce his work in space when he is in the city, in Tétouan, North Morocco. He was a student and living in his parents' house, and he had no studio in the house with his family. So he took over a space that is under the stairs, a very small space. I don't know if you saw the Harry Potter kind of space, the first. So it's this kind of space that he emptied from inside, and he made it very simple for making his drawings, but also for meditating and isolating himself from the family. If you live in a big family in Morocco, you don't have a dedicated space for you as a student or as an artist. You don't have a studio in the house. It cannot be a main activity. It can be it's not accepted as, you can't occupy a space just for you to have, to make your drawings or even for reading. You have to share all the space with your family. So he took over this understairs space. And with time, it became his meditating space where he would make a lot of drawings. And he went to the mountains of the Rif and, with an invitation. I invited him to go to the mountains, not necessarily to produce this artwork, but I invited him in what I call the expeditions Le Buddha Monde, to go to a certain location, to a certain site, and in between, between the city and this location, you spend time discussing. What are you going to do in this space? Who are you going to meet? What kind of issues the artist is working? So the time of going to the place becomes not the preparatory, but the imposed time. You need to do something in this. So when he went in the Rif Mountains, on this site, we met with people living there, and the artist decided to reproduce his space, to offer a space to people who are visiting, a space for meditation and work and rest. And of course, as a curator, I needed to give him the tools. I mean, I was also the producer in this case. So he bought a land. If you want to build an architecture, you need to be given a land. And he bought this land from people from the village and give it to people as an artwork. So what is important here is you buy a land and you give it to people. It becomes not owned. So the property that you pay and you make it not owned and open to everybody is important here. So in relation to the exhibition, if you ask me about how this was produced, how you can buy a land and build a sculpture in it and give it for free to people, you are an artist and a curator. The question is, the answer is yes, this was possible because we made a museum paying or an institution paying for this project that does not happen in a museum. This is in Barcelona, but this is only the archive of the photographs and the documentation of the project. The real project happened in the Rif Mountains using funds that were made for an exhibition in Europe. And we asked that the budget is used for production in the mountain, and the museum just have documentation, not the work itself, because the work is made for this for this site, not for the museum. So this work is a model in a place where the notion of exhibition is a gesture for sharing and rethinking its economy, its ecology, and its political and social perspective, including interrogation on the principle of ownership and reproducibility. The ownership of a land or a house in this region, in the Rif, is something that is sacred. You can't really disaccession someone. It's really something that is really important. You can't just occupy a house or a private place. Actually, this is the image number. Get to the image. Just show them one by one. Okay. In the same exhibition, we have this work by Mustafa Akrim. He's also an artist who lives in Saleh, and it's a more literally, directly critical work in which you see Moroccan money. And in Morocco, since the independence, every 10 years you had a new kind of money, new images printed in the money, and all these images are related to the idea of progress. The one in the left side, you have a woman who is packing oranges. Morocco is a big producer of oranges for export, and the nation or the state at that time wanted to use the figure of a woman as at work in a conservative society, and we wanted to show this figure of woman at work and exporting. But it was for the artist, it is an image of propaganda. In the right side, you have the same. You have farmers and the machine and industrialization. This is more 1960s. And in the back, you have also a mining site with this big machine of phosphate. Morocco is also producing a lot of phosphate. But this work, of course, it interrogates these images through the money, and the artists reproduce them in a format of a canvas, making them monumental. But what he is interrogating is his position as a worker, as an artist, as a citizen working and thinking about his society. Mustafa Akrim started as an artist, but before that he started as a worker with his father. He was graduated from Tétouan Art School, and he went to Rabat looking for a job. And he started producing works, but there is no really exhibitions. There is no museums in Morocco for emerging artists, for example. You have art spaces, but you can't really survive. So he started working with his father in building, a maçon, like really assisting his father who is building houses, thinking about the position of the artist as a worker, but also to make work. And he played with the idea of work, artwork, artist as worker. He went to the street in Morocco and participated in protests of young unemployed people. So he talked a lot with these people, and he was in a residency, an artist residency, and this is where he started to think about history and the role of the artist, how he can interpret, work around the idea of the work and interpret this idea of work, progress, artists participating in building economy for himself and for the society. This is why you have all these figures around the work. And one of his sculpture that is a very important one is when he started to deliver more works and his work started to be more exhibited, he took the tools, the construction tools, hammer and all the tools, he glued them together, he sticked them together. It was a sculpture. It became an artwork using tools of a worker in buildings. Okay, the other artists, I'm just going to talk about these three artists from the Sunuzio exhibition, again at MHKA, and this is Oriole Villanova, who was invited in the same place in the Rif Mountain in North Morocco, a place where several artists went participating in these expeditions, Le Buddha Monde, going to a site, meeting with people, and Oriole Villanova went to the market and started talking to people, negotiating, buying small things. But the object of this, the goal was not really buying this object. It was to discuss with them and bargain, interrogate the price of things. And at the museum in Makba, of course, we used the budget of the museum at Makba to send the artist to this place and to also buy a number of things. And at the museum, he just painted not the gallery, the outside of the gallery space in the color of sand, of this, in reference to this location, but also denunciating an idea of bringing touristic images from the site of production for him. Here, I mean, in all these works, what it is about is also how you bring an artwork that is not really that is not an object, that is based on this exchange, on this exploration. You are in an expedition, you explore, you have discussions, you have a number of activities that cannot be really just transposed as objects. So he decided to not record really images, to not show images, but just to give a color to the exhibition space in Barcelona that the museum produced on top of all the investment that is made for the artist to go on site to make the work that will be never seen at the museum. You will see some kind of documentation in the catalog, but not in the exhibition at all. And one other thing that Oriole Villanova did in relation to this project, he requested that the museum reduces the ticketing, the access to the exhibition price, so from, I think, €10 to €5, and it was a negotiation. Again, the artist bargained with the institution to reduce the price, as he did in the marketplace to buy objects. So this was the artist position, and from the curatorial point of view, this image is in Morocco, 2011. I was invited to participate in one of these projects dedicated to African art or production or art scene in Brussels, and with a group of curators that I call curatorial delegation, we requested, in order to participate in an event, in an exhibition in Brussels that has a topic, Africa as a topic, bringing artists from Africa to show for a European audience, for example, instead of bringing, again, objects or produced artworks in certain contexts, to make it documentary or give a number of samples of works, because if you show a work that is existing elsewhere, it can be a sample. We requested that to use 50% of the budget. That was a very small budget. It was something like €12,000, and we requested that half of it, €6,000, to be used on the continent in the Reef Mountain, where a series of encounters and radio program was produced and streamed in the exhibition space. So this temporary space was built as a radio studio in a countryside, same region where you had Yunus Rahmoun work, but it's not necessarily to invite only artists, to invite curators and artists, but also people living there to discuss different things. The principle here is the cooperative artist-citizen, and rather than artist-producer, and the curator buying the editor rather than the publisher and or distributor. So the product that you see in the museum who commissioned the exhibition have the documentation. You make a work that is documentary, but a document that becomes a memory of action. So there's no object at the end. There is information that help you think about the context where the artist intervenes, where the artist explores a situation to give a response. Again, to continue on the curator's position here, another example. In Benin, Africa, this was during the Biennial Benin 2012, titled Inventing the Word, the Artist as Citizen. In Benin, they do this biennale, but they don't have a space, an exhibition space. So, I was invited as the artistic director, but I invited a number of curators. I'm not talking about my work here, curatorial at all. But the group, the curatorial delegation, is a group of curators, but it's also a methodology that responds to a situation. A curatorial delegation, a delegation that is similar to a political delegation, where you go to a place. The leader is the person who speaks the language, who is from there, or he's so it becomes a methodology, it becomes a strategy. And this in Benin, this supermarket was closed since 10 years. And we invited a number of artists to invest the space to do special project interventions. Mishak Gaba lives there in Benin. Cameon came, did a special production there with using also plants from there and objects and discussions with people. But I'm not showing the exhibition, I'm showing only this image because it's important. It's an important link to this idea of artist as citizen. And what you see here are the cashiers of the supermarket. When we arrived at the supermarket, the curatorial delegation arrived and the artists were invited, you still had products from the supermarket. Outdated bottles of wine and a lot of products. And these cashiers had still the machines, not working anymore, of course, but we used them, we offered them to local associations, groups of artists, to use them as information points for their projects that are happening in the city. And another major point in this project, and very challenging to convince the organizers, was to spend again 50% of the budget as to finance local associations projects and self-organized projects locally. So projects happened everywhere in the city, in different parts of the city, and the only thing that was imposed to these local associations when we gave them half of the entire budget was for them to use one of the cashiers to inform visitors of the exhibition itself about the project they are doing in the city. And some of them would give you just the maps and a short presentation on the project that is happening in the city, and others would stand there and produce something, conversations in this place, or make it as a selling point. One of the associations and artist group were producing clothes with people of special needs in the city, and they would bring these clothes and sell them here and make even more money to take it back to the neighborhood and develop. So this is an important action that is not defining, or that is not really the result of your curatorial projections. So this is, you take a risk in this kind of relationship where you say, okay, I'm going to consider this artist as a citizen who is working in the city, to invest as a curator, but without really knowing the outcome and without having a direct result in terms of communication, because they have the biggest part is autonomous. It's communication for their continuous project all the year, not for the time frame of the exhibition. So the economy in the project, using resources to produce work, a work that is making sense of the present situation and the object of memory for future. You act here with an exhibition, what you call an exhibition, in a certain economy, but its implications are beyond the exhibition. We need to understand the possible production that would take place in action communication. So the exhibition, what you have as a result as a producer is the exhibition becomes some kind of editorial outcome, publication, lecture. So just to end, thinking on the exhibition as part of the economy of the artistic productions, we can look at a number of works that are produced for exhibitions, and many of them would never be produced without an exhibition. So I don't know how many works that are in mind of artists that will never exist if they are not financed by an exhibition, by a biennale or by a museum. So this is something that I'm asking myself, and I think as curators it's important to think about this, and because what you are asking also is how the exhibition is contributing to this economy. I would say to the ecology of this production, but how many works are also produced and never and not considering the economy of the exhibition itself, that are not visible, that are not shown. It's maybe more in literature or in the critical thinking. Maybe it's more also relevant. How many ideas that are not visible because they are not connected to an economy of exhibition, and how many exhibitions are not made because they are not connected to the economy of the art production itself. So I would consider those works which exist beyond the event, the exhibition as well. So I think I will end here and continue the discussion later. Thank you.